Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Ready, Set, Thrive. I am your host, Stacey Soleil. I'm the Marketing and Technology Director with West, a Williston Financial Group company. Today, this week, I'm very excited because we have Brian Gardner with us. And I know we have some Brian Gardner fans in the house because Brian, the legend. Brian is the co-founder and CEO of Agent Engine, which is the product that we're going to talk a little bit about today. But I want to talk a little bit about your backstory because this is a great place to start. You're kind of known as the godfather of Premium WordPress. It's pretty significant. How do you feel? You look too young to have this godfather term. Like it feels like it could be a little insulting to use such big words, but
no.
You're OG, Brian. Seriously.
OG, I'll take the OG because I know I've been around on the internet for 15 or so years. So OG WordPress is really how kind of the original folks know me as.
There you go. Awesome. So would you mind, I'd love for you to just, I know you hate talking about yourself. You're a very humble guy, but would you mind just giving a little bit of a backstory of, how you came to be in the ranks of the world of real estate and WordPress and web design? Let's talk a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. So in 2006, I was working at an architectural firm. I was a project manager doing cost estimation and organizing installations of projects and things like that. Got a little bit bored. I started blogging because I like to write. And Blogger at the time was a Google product, and just it wasn't enough for me. So a friend of mine recommended I play around with WordPress. And so I played around with WordPress and didn't know it really then, but I sort of was interested in design. WordPress had a bunch of free themes that were available. I pulled one down. I didn't like the way it looked. So I just sort of opened up the files and started playing around with the CSS, which is basically the code that changes the way things look. And ultimately taught myself how to code WordPress themes. And I started to do a little bit of freelance work on the side, sort of as a designer, moonlighting with my gig at the architectural firm. And I created a product in WordPress, which is arguably the first premium WordPress theme. Again, as I said, everything was free back in the day.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, I had created a theme for a real estate agent, a guy out of Boston, who to this day I should probably send a royalty check to, because the design I did for him, he rejected. It wasn't exactly what he was looking for. So I kind of put that aside, gave him what he was looking for, and then I brought what I had done originally back, which in fact was the original Revolution WordPress theme, which was the first one that we sold. So not taking any business or marketing classes in school, I did what I thought was the next logical thing, which was ask my audience, would they buy it? Right. And then a resounding echo of people that would say, yeah, that's amazing. This is more than a blog. This is crazy. This is awesome. And then so I followed it up with how much would you spend on a WordPress theme, premium WordPress theme? And, got some responses and finally packaged it up and sold it. And the first month I sold $10,000. Then it went 20, 40, and 80 in the subsequent months. And I knew at that point I had done something unexpected. And as I told my wife, it was financially irresponsible for me to stay at my day job, and it was time to quit and do this internet thing, in air quotes. And so that sort of was the spark of how my involvement with WordPress and design and a little bit of marketing that came a few years later when we merged into Copyblogger, but somewhat of a different story there.
Now, was that when you were on that journey? Was that when you created the Genesis? Was that part of the Studio Press days, or how was that transition for you?
So Revolution, I was sent a cease and desist letter from a company in the United Kingdom saying that I was sort of infringing on their trademark, which I knew nothing about back in the day. And so my intellectual property attorney said, you probably want to rebrand. So we rebranded as Studio Press, sort of as the high level company. And the product that we created was the Genesis framework, which is
so many people use to this day still. Myself included. So
we're 10 years in, maybe 10 years, 10, 11 years in. We just celebrated another anniversary. So it powers quite a few sites.
Yeah. And that was just all coming from your passion. You were curious about something and you decided to dive right in. And even though you were doing something else at the time, you just kept, moving forward and figuring it out on your own. Mm-hmm. And I think I was reading somewhere that you weren't even trained. It was all self-taught. Is that correct?
Yeah, my wife is a very book smart person, and I'm a very street smart person. I don't. I learned by sort of rolling my sleeves up and going under the hood and just trying, And people will ask me, "Oh, how did you get there? How did you learn so much?" And it's literally just Google and trial and error. Those were the two educational pieces that I used.
I feel like that is one of the things that has inspired me most about you. I mean, not that you haven't done so many amazing things, but I think what it does is it creates this level playing field for anybody who's watching, saying, okay, there's this thing that I really want to do. And I don't know if I'm qualified, or I don't know if I'm too late to the game, or so it's so inspirational when you meet somebody that said, well, I mean, I didn't technically have the skill sets, on paper, but Google, passion, and drive led me to where I am today.
Totally.
Which is so huge to me. So thank you for being every man and woman's hero that way. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So the reason I wanted to pick your brain today, because everybody wants to pick your brain, is a few things. I wanted to talk about, I know that you're working on kind of a new collaboration of sorts that you're moving forward with. And I know that we're kind of working our ways towards that. But I wanted to talk more on the creative side about the elements of branding and how you apply your own methodologies of minimalism to kind of power that strategy moving forward. So do you mind if we can kind of start there? Because
Sure.
I remembered reading that you believe in 3 key elements when it comes to building a great brand. So let's kind of start there. What are those 3 key elements to you?
So I call them the ACD. I'd love to have a 4th one that goes back to C again to kind of do the ACDC thing. But so since you're asking for 3, I'll just give you the 3. I'll just roll through the 3 and then we can kind of pick through each one. Okay. So the first element of a great brand is authenticity. The second, at least this has been my experience, right? The second key element is courage. And the third one is just design, as in good design. I'll leave it at that, and then we can kind of roll through each one.
Okay. And you know what? I think I have the C for you. Have you already found the C?
Well, courage is the first C. I'm looking for a second C.
Okay, I got the second C for you, Brian. I'm going to share with you right now.
Ooh, go for
it. Ready? The customer.
True story.
Right? It all comes back to the customer. It comes back to the consumer. You're welcome. High five across the screen. You got this.
Which is great, because I've been a proponent of customer service ever since I was working my convenience store job, and that followed through all the way to Studio Press and cultivating that community. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You're welcome. It's all good.
25% owner of the
you heard it here on Ready, Set, Thrive. Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's kind of break those down and talk about each component and how you see that, rounding the edges of a great brand.
So authenticity for me has always been something. It's sort of like the higher level word of just honesty and sort of being transparent with whatever it is you're doing. I learned it from a relational standpoint very early, sort of the implications of sort of owning your own stuff and sort of using that to better yourself and through relationships and ones that didn't go so well. I just learned sort of how important it is to just be honest and upfront. Yeah. And so through the business of Studio Press, it's always been a thing of mine. I'm sort of an emotional guy just in general. And so a lot of times if you follow me on Twitter or subscribe to my newsletter and stuff like that, I do storytelling because I feel like there's a lot of things I've learned in life. It may not be business specific, can be related to somehow being business specific. And so I realize I have a modest platform through social media and just those who have followed along the Studio Press journey. And it's always been important to me to be a beacon, as you say earlier, of what it means to just be real and to like reassure people they are not the only ones. And that's sort of on the micro personal level, right? And so, So from a brand perspective, also, Buffer was kind of like one of the original brands that really, from kind of like a financial standpoint, they really, like Leo really sort of paved the way of, hey, we're not doing this to like shove our numbers in your face, but we just want to be open and transparent about, what we are as a business, what we stand for, how we're doing, where we're going wrong and things like that. And I think it's huge. I think it's really important. I have this little motto. I believe in honesty no matter what, right? For those of you who have seen the movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner and Jennifer Garner, sort of a sports NFL thing, he's got this piece of paper at the beginning of the movie, he writes down this little thing on yellow paper, and it's this guy that he wants to pick. And the whole story is all about like all of who, all of the prospects and who he should pick and all this other stuff. And at the end, he ends up picking the guy who isn't sort of the number one guy, but he believed in this guy, Vontae Mack, who Chadwick Boseman was actually the actor who played this gentleman. And it said Vontae Mack, no matter what. And so honesty, no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, it's so crucial too, because it seems like, especially with having the internet, we all feel like we have this buffer, which is funny. We were just talking about buffer, but feeling like we don't have necessarily the, you don't have to necessarily face somebody face to face when you're making a statement or making a claim, or maybe doing something that you wouldn't otherwise do if you were sitting right next to somebody. Yeah. And applying that real level of strong authenticity, honesty, vulnerability, transparency, especially as a brand, is so important. And it just as long as it takes for you to build up your audience. We were just talking about this backstage about it takes time to, build your tribe, build your audience, and kind of create that following. And you can just like that, by not being authentic, by not being vulnerable enough and being transparent, lose the trust of those that are around you. So I love that you make that the groundwork of what you build as a brand, because I think I agree with you 100%. That matters so much.
Yeah. So number 2 would be courage.
Yes.
And I'm going to read this because I've established these as values sort of internally, but I believe there is no better day than today to start your journey, and that integrity is built outside comfort zones and in seasons of uncertainty. As a brand, you have to be willing to take chances, right? Because nobody wants to see yet another this or yet another that. And as we've done stuff through StudioPress and WordPress and all that, and especially now as we move into Agent Engine, which is sort of traditionally a very sort of just tech heavy personality-less sort of thing, we want to be a brand that's really down to earth and relatable for agents. And we want to be accessible. We want to be transparent, but we also want to do some things that like aren't being done in the industry. And so we, I think
takes courage. Yes.
Chris Brogan was it Chris Brogan who wrote Disruptors? Just the whole idea of coming into an industry, which I've had a passion for many, many years. Some of which have been part of the StudioPress journey as we did real estate stuff. But I really want to come in because I feel like and we can get to this next with design, the things that I'm passionate about, I think are really things that can be used to help make a real powerful and positive impact in the industry.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit more about that then. Let's kind of build upon it, because from the design side of things, I know that you have done lots of different types of designs over the years. And as a result of being on that journey and maybe doing a lot of things that were a little bit more complex or a little bit more, lots of moving parts, here you are today. And you're powered by a more minimalistic approach to things. Do you mind if we kind of dive into how that came to fruition for you? And,
Yep.
I'd love to hear that story.
So many years ago, I was following a gentleman by the name of Joshua Becker. He is the one behind Becoming Minimalist. He's very much a minimalist spokesperson.
Yes.
And at the time, he was on a competitor of ours, WordPress theme competitor. And so as sort of the opportunist I am, I reached out to him on Twitter and said, hey, if you're ever looking for a redesign, this was kind of early on in the Genesis journey. I said, let me know. I'd be happy to help. Just thinking, well, he's got a big audience. Maybe it's helpful. So he reached out and said, yeah, we ended up doing a redesign of his site. And an offshoot of this sort of encounter with him was that we removed the sidebar from his website, which is another conversation because I created a movement called No Sidebar.
I saw that. I was reading up on that. I was like, that is so brilliant.
We get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But Joshua and I became really, really good friends. And so yes, he ended up getting a free WordPress theme from me, a custom theme, but the friendship that he and I built and sort of through that osmosis became this, I kept hearing about this minimalism thing, and I kept
He
hearing
inspired you, didn't he?
yes, less is more. And what went from sort of like a transactional business relationship really became a friendship and almost a mentorship because at the time Studio Press was doing well. And so financially we were okay. And we were kind of doing things and spending money, maybe a little bit recklessly, and buying things. And we had more stuff. And with that became more responsibilities and stuff like that. And it kind of culminated when No Sidebar came about, because at the same time, from a design perspective, as I was doing things at Studio Press, I was just getting really, really tired of seeing websites that had sidebars that were just really, really long and littered literally with clutter, much the same that Joshua speaks with the physical clutter at your house. Like, these sidebars had all of these things that just were unnecessary, or people were doing because everyone else was doing it. I said, fine, I'm going to create a movement called No Sidebar, where I'm going to remove the sidebar from my website, and it's all about the content, which kind of goes into sort of intentional design, right? Like the natural placement of things. And so No Sidebar became it started as more of a literal movement, like get everything out of a sidebar. And then it really quickly, through my relationship with Joshua, really shifted figuratively into just like remove the things in our life that sort of get in the way and take up space. So
that's awesome. I mean, quite honestly, when you're thinking about, websites, especially from the real estate perspective, I mean, most people just don't know, first of all, how to design a website, myself included. I mean, I've built blogs and I destroyed them, but had fun playing with it. But you don't know. And you're right. You look, and oftentimes what you'll do is look at what somebody else is doing. And say, okay, oh, well, they look pretty successful. They're running a bunch of ads. Oh, they have a word cloud. Oh, they have plugins. Oh, they have this. And you don't know any better. You just don't. I mean, and it's easy for us when we are in any given field, and that's our expertise, to just think, oh my gosh, why would you do that? But the reality is that most people don't know. Right. So having the No Sidebar movement and the simplicity where that focus is placed on content, which I love, because I'm always talking to my clientele about the importance of creating that dialogue through that natural language. That, more than anything, is going to help your SEO when you're using the right words in the right forms in a very natural language that's compelling, it's authentic, it's storytelling. That does so much more than just cramming a bunch of crap all over the place. So, and I'm not the expert like you, so I'd love to hear your feedback on all of that. But
so I don't know if you can see, there's a sign just over here. It's a white sign, and it's something we had custom built for Etsy. Anyway, what it says on there is something that I kind of said and marked back in the day with No Sidebar, which is white space is where the magic happens. And there's many ways to interpret that on a website, sort of in your own mind, and all these other things, and even in your business. But I think it's true. I think on websites in particular, real estate or not, I think when you give people sort of an environment at which feels comfortable and not cluttered or rushed or bombarded or whatever, I mean, that really sets the tone of an experience with somebody. And I, and some of my closest friends have these, and it kills me, is when you go to a website and there's like a screen takeover, sign up for my thing. I'm like, I don't even know who you are. I haven't even read a sentence on your website yet. And here you are trying to do something. And so it just made it my personal mission and goal to sort of simplify and beautify the web and encourage people. And with Studio Press, it was really easy to do because I would just do it with my design, where people would then buy and consume and naturally have a more spacious website. Whether they choose to keep it that way is not on my control, but and so like it was important to me to just sort of transcend more than just what I was learning, and just really try to be an example of less is more. Those are very sort of overused phrases, but
I know you don't like cliche, and I'm super campy. So here we are in the middle of that craziness, right?
Yes.
So, okay, but let me ask you this, because I am curious. And you made a statement about, sometimes somebody will land on a website, and before you know it, there's that data capture, there's that lead capture moment. And, like you said, it feels intrusive because, I haven't even got to know you yet, or I haven't even looked around that much yet. So there is that fine line where oftentimes people just don't know. I mean, obviously, if they're spending the money to, get themselves a website and put money into their marketing budget, we all know that the end result, the goal is to please don't lose this opportunity to connect with this person. Now, sure, in a perfect world, the connectivity would be they like you, they're drawn to you. But the reality is it's somewhere in the middle, because not everybody's going to stick around and say, hey, I want to get to know you as soon as I get here. So I feel like there's this middle ground, right? Where we have to compel through imagery, compel through your content, compel through your personality. And somehow all of that has to shine in a split second or so to pull people in. It's a journey, right? So let me ask you this. Of the things that are happening out there, I know you said that the capture forms are one of the things that drive you nuts, but of the things that you see out there happening is specifically to real estate websites, what are some of the things that you wish people would reconsider, aside from the popping up lead capture moment?
Well, that's one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
I almost like to answer the question, like, what would I want them to consider?
Okay. I mean, we can definitely go that direction.
Let me just try to kind of think through, because a lot of real estate websites, people, and we had talked about this a little bit earlier, just the whole idea of IDX and like, hey, just got to see the houses and see the houses. I really feel like on some level, just the immediate perception, curb appeal, for lack of a better term, it's fitting for this industry of a website, and just the design of when you land there. You don't even see a picture yet. You don't necessarily even read any content yet, but just being able to, like, when you open the front door, say, okay, this looks like a place that I would want to investigate, look into. This is a house that I could feel comfortable in. And so anything that would be on a website, capture forms, one of them, screen takeovers, that kind of stuff. Anything that doesn't serve a purpose to really identify what is it that you're trying to get someone to do. You obviously want them to become interested in using you as an agent, right? So on some level, yes, you need to get their attention, but just really focusing on placement of things and sort of the presentation of the things, because a lot of the things that we see on real estate websites need to be there. It's just, can we add a little bit more space to make it a little bit more comfortable for people to see? We don't have to remove as many things at that point, right? Because even the whole above the fold thing is such a myth now, with so many people doing stuff on mobile. It's just really intentionally, hey, this is who I am. This is my message. Here's how to get a hold of me. And that just seems to work so much better, especially when people feel inundated and sort of like cornered. Because I'll tell you one thing. The one thing I hate to do is go shopping at a furniture store, because I know the second I walk in the door, someone's going to be following me around. And I want to tell them, I'm like, look, you will get my business better or more if you just give me space, right? If you just don't hover over me, because that doesn't make me feel comfortable.
Yeah, and it makes the whole experience difficult for you to feel connected as well. Yeah. So let me ask you this. If we simplify and we, remove a lot of the clutter and be really intentional with how we are compelling and interacting with anyone who comes to our website, when is it appropriate to ask for the person's information? When is it appropriate to, say, leave your information here? Because let's face it, people want to be able to follow up and stay in touch. So in your opinion, when would that be a appropriate time?
So a good example of something like that would be if let's just say it's a piece of content, right? Like a neighborhood guide or a blog post or something like that. Naturally, at the bottom of that is where it would make most sense to me. Hey, someone just read through the article and they appreciate the information I gave them. Seems like a very natural spot to suggest, hey, if you want more, here's how to do it. I think people get desperate and they sort of get a little bit, anxiety. Oh, they may not get down to that point. Do you want someone to sign up who hasn't even read your content yet? I mean, maybe you'll have a greater email list, but will the open rate be higher? Like, there's other things to consider than just, how many fans are on my page or how many emails I have on my list. Because, 10,000 people on a list with a 1% open rate really isn't great.
Right. So the focus on the quality versus the quantity.
Very much so. Very much so. And so if that means people don't sign up because they haven't gotten what they needed, that's okay, because they're not the kind of person you want on your list anyways.
I mean, I'll tell you, there's two different types of business owners out there, are the ones that, like you said, that really want that highly connected and quicker to convert number because they're definitely dialed in. And then there's those that are playing that numbers game. They want the numbers, right? So I think what you had, I think I had seen you have this dialogue with someone else when I was kind of researching some of your past journeys, that you had said, maybe this is not for everybody, but I want to connect with those that are thinking in this way, those that are looking to connect with a consumer that appreciates and values that type of messaging. So, I think you and I were talking prior about one of your goals at present is trying to find a way to simplify the process so that the consumer and the professional can really connect in a really fluid manner where it's not confusing, it's not chaotic. And I think that's part of what has driven you towards your process currently. Is that correct with Agent Engine?
100%.
Fantastic. So speaking of which, let's kind of talk a tiny bit about, the journey, what you're doing now, because I know you write a fantastic newsletter and I'm not even a huge fan of newsletters, if I'm being honest with you, which is funny because I'm a writer. But most of the times people, they just respect the newsletter format, right? It's just a bunch of, I don't want to see that stock image that I've seen from everybody else, and it's boring. But when you have something creative to say, or you're just a talented writer, or it's just short enough to make me feel like I got a little something, but not too much to weigh me down. I feel like I've gotten that from when I subscribed to yours. So, and I know it's a brand new launch for you. So can you tell me a little bit about the backstory of what you're doing here?
So Agent Engine is the new project, the only project that I'm working on right now. We sold StudioPress 2 years ago, and I've kind of spent the last 2 years sort of in the proverbial wilderness trying to figure out what I want to do. Involved in a bunch of side projects and just ideas, because I'm a creative, I'm an idea person, so it's easy for me to sort of just come up with something and execute. So 5 or 6 months ago, I finally realized, I have a fiduciary duty for my family to figure out the next 30 or 40 years. I can't just float on the little bit that we got from the sale. So I said, I got to come up with the next thing, right? And so I started thinking through what the next thing is. And for whatever reason, real estate just kept coming back to me. We had created a thing called Agent Press way back in the day. And real estate for me was just always something that I always felt like a tug on my heart. It was an industry where I could make a real impact, especially as a designer, and especially in an industry that's traditionally sort of fast-paced and higher paced and sort of all of that. I'm like, so we came up with the idea for Agent Engine, which we're still iterating on. But the gist of the Agent Engine thing is we want to make it easy as we speak to agents for their customers to do business with them. And so a lot of that will come through just well-designed experience and organizing things in a straightforward way. And with all of my years of experience designing at StudioPress, and as I mentioned earlier, I had become partners with Brian Clark, a copy blogger. And so the whole idea of design and branding and marketing has basically been sort of my existence over the last 15 years. And sort of pair that with sort of the desire to just really help inspire and lead entrepreneurs, whether they be designers or agents. Just, hey, here's an easier way to do business, a more intentional, honest way to do business, a fulfilling lifestyle. All of these things kind of came together, and I'm like, Agent Engine seemed to be the best way to pull that off.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like even from your logo, it makes you feel something. It's simple, yet it's really compelling in its simplicity. So I totally get where you're coming from as far as, compelling through that, either you get it or you don't, right? And so I'm really excited. So I would love to, I'm actually going to put up the banner here. For those of you that are watching live, or if you're watching the rebroadcasts, I really highly recommend that you subscribe to Brian's. How often are you sending out your newsletter? Is it weekly, daily? What is it?
So in the spirit of simplicity and not overwhelming people, we're doing it weekly. So every Sunday, I've been playing around with days just a little bit just to see how open rates go, but it's once a week.
Okay. And what kind of information can people look forward to receiving if they subscribe and tune
so right
into
now,
your messaging?
Yeah. So right now we're just kind of laying the foundation of like the design and branding and the importance of sort of having a digital presence, right? Because let's face it, everything is happening on the internet these days, and a lot of agents don't have a real digital presence or understand how important and impactful that can be. And so
Yeah.
we're really sort of laying the foundation of like pieces of all of that, which of course will naturally promote what we're building right now.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, I really appreciate that you took the time. I know that your internet's having a tiny bit of cutting in and out. So if you're seeing a blurry Brian, just listen to his voice because his wisdom is coming through no matter what the picture says. Just really wanted to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I've been, following the people that inspire me and that I think, your messaging would translate over to what other people I work with would benefit from. So I've been going out and being a bit bold myself and reaching out to people that, maybe hanging out with Stacy on Ready, Set, Thrive isn't like your number one priority in life, but I love just going for it and connecting the dots with people that just inspire me. So thank you for being willing. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to once everything rolls out completely, we might have to do a follow-up so we can kind of dive in deeper. But I would really love for everyone to, follow the journey. I'm a huge fan of being first. I guess that means I like to win, but I also like to experience things first. So I like to be, remember like when you would sign up to be on beta test lists and you get your little alerts, like I'm that nerd. And I know a lot of people that I connect with like to hear about things first. So here's an opportunity for those of you that are watching to be a part of something first. Go ahead and make sure that you subscribe and take hold of what's right in front of you here with Agent Engine. And I look forward to talking to you again soon, Brian.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And for everybody who's watching, thank you so much for choosing to dial in and watching Ready, Set, Thrive. We have some really exciting guests that are going to be continuing to line up for the rest of Q4. So stay tuned and keep coming back because it's only getting better each week, folks. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.